I want to thank Squarespace for sponsoring this video.
I don't know if I'm the only one who gets this way, but there's times when I'm working my 9 to 5 and I am like pulling my hair out. Like I will be losing sleep. I will be working more than a regular 8-hour day. I will be obsessing over little details in a project and just being a perfectionist over my job. And then I take a step back and I realize I'm like, okay, I'm literally just working this job to pay the bills. Why am I going so hard right now? And a lot of people will argue that this is natural, right? Like we as humans, whenever we have a task put in front of us, we're naturally going to put our best foot forward and work our hardest at it. But for me, as someone who went to business school and saw firsthand the way that employers were taught and trained to think, I'm not so convinced that this is natural. Like we as human beings on this spinning rock in the middle of space are not naturally built to be pulling out our hair and losing sleep over a job that we don't care about. So in this video, I really want to cover how employers not only take advantage of their employees, but also kind of brainwash us into pulling our hair out and losing sleep and overexerting our energy into our jobs. A lot of the decisions that we make as people in the society, as workers and students, we make them out of fear, right? So a lot of times when we're signing up for college or we're working a 9 to 5 that we know we don't really care about, we're doing these things because we're scared very, very deep within us. And even oftentimes we don't even realize we're scared of this, but we're scared of being homeless and starving to death, right? Because we live in a society that teaches us if you don't do the normal path, if you don't go the normal course, you will not be taken care of financially, right? And I talk about this more in my other videos. I'll link them up here somewhere. But that all to say, this fear that we've all been taught also fuels companies and allows them to take advantage of employees. And the way that this is done is by reminding you constantly that you are replaceable, right? We know and we recognize that we can easily be fired. Companies do not value us as much as we value the paycheck that we're getting from them. So we constantly overexert our energies. And companies, from the moment that you come in, when they start training you and teaching you how to do your job, they will instill a fear in you of underperforming. You don't want to underperform, you don't ever want to fall behind, and you naturally want to compete against your coworkers so that you do not have to fear being replaced, right? So what this kind of does is it kind of creates this natural drive to excel, but it also creates competition from the moment that you're hired in a company, no matter what role you're in, right? So I know for me, I started my company as an intern, and we as interns, like when we started, we had no idea what we were actually going to be doing until the first day. They didn't ask us what our interests were. We were already assigned a team, and we were told what our projects were going to be the day that we started. And we were also told that only a few of us would be making it into a full-time role. So from the first day of our internship, there was this natural kind of fear and anxiety that fueled us as we worked, right? We worked together, we collaborated together, but we also kind of all knew that we all wouldn't be making it. So we had to be careful what we shared. We had to be careful how we talked to the full-time employees because we were scared of even we were scared of like saying the wrong thing to the full-time employees, even like when we were in the kitchen getting some coffee, because we like didn't want to mess up our chances of getting hired full time. And the craziest thing is you would see people slowly start to kind of compete without even really saying that they were competing, right? Like some people would start coming in way earlier than everyone else and staying way later. There's always this natural competition that brews, especially when you're starting at the bottom of the ladder in corporate America, right? So I kind of saw this firsthand. And then what's even more convenient is if you're fresh out of college and you've already racked up some student loan debt, then you're working on even more fear, right? Because you're scared of not only being financially unstable, but being financially unstable with debt. That's why you see a lot of internship programs, because not only do interns make great new full-time employees, but they also are naturally going to be highly productive and highly competitive. So a work environment where there's lots of competition, where people need to meet certain quotas, especially when those goals and those quotas are made public and compared against your peers. These are all ways that employers feed off of the fear that has been instilled in you by society from the moment that you probably started going to school, like in kindergarten, right? So as you kind of start working at a company for long enough, you kind of stop working under this fear of being replaced, right? As you start to kind of make relationships with people at your company and start to deliver on results, improve your value as a worker, companies still need that high productivity from you. Companies still need you to overexert yourself. So to do this, employers essentially have to brainwash you into being loyal to their company. As a business major, all of us were required to take management classes. And the number one lesson that we learned in management is that in order to increase worker productivity, you have to increase worker loyalty to a company, right? So managers, their job is to extract as much productivity as they can from you. And so they're being trained to do this most effectively by playing on you psychologically. Like, I found this quote on the Indeed website. It says, when employees have loyalty to a company, they are often invested in its success, work hard to reach goals, and feel like they're making an impact. Emphasis on the word feel. They often aren't looking for new job opportunities. So employers are actively working to get you to be loyal to a company, right? If you work from home right now, chances are your employer is trying to get you to come back into the office. And that's because they know that employees, when they work in an office, when they get more face-to-face interaction, they're not really being more productive, but they are building more company loyalty, right? So employee loyalty campaigns are really just a form of brainwashing to increase your output as a worker, right? So these are things like team bonding or company events, any kind of morale building. So like any kind of overly hyped training videos to get you to be really excited about the company that you're working for, any kind of perks and benefits that you get that really have nothing to do with your actual well-being as a person, right? Like, there's one thing to get healthcare, but a lot of employees also get discounts to get you to go shop at the company, right? So when you think about something like a Google campus, right? Like, you see all these amazing perks and benefits and all these fun activities and free food, and it seems really amazing, but they know that employees are more likely to stay at the office longer when they have all these perks and fun things to do, but they also are more likely to probably get things done, right? The crazy thing is, there's like literal studies out there to show that the more time you spend in an office, it doesn't really correlate to more productivity, right? So working in an office, spending more hours in your day on a project is not actually going to increase your results or actually make you perform better, but what it will do is make you more loyal to the company. When you're going into the office, you're getting all these perks and benefits, you have all these relationships at work, you actually feel emotionally connected to your job. And while that can be an amazing feeling if you actually love what you're doing and you feel like you're making an impact, a lot of times this can make us forget that we are really just working a job to pay the bills. But we've been convinced through this emotional bond that we've built with our companies that the exhaustion that we have from work, the amount of energy that we're putting into our work, is actually worth it, right? And what's really sad is a lot of us kind of fall into this trap without really realizing it, right? It's okay to work a 9 to 5 and to end up loving it and to end up getting really caught up in it. But employers and also society knows how to put people in a hypnosis where they're so caught up in a career and building a 9 to 5 that by the time they snap their fingers, they look back on their lives and they ask themselves what they actually wanted out of it, and they realize that they were never actually going after what they wanted.
Whatever your passion is, I really encourage you guys to build an online presence, which is why I'm really excited that Squarespace is sponsoring this video. From marketing tools and analytics to blogging and collecting donations, Squarespace is literally the one-stop shop for you to build a cohesive online presence, which for me as a content creator, you guys know I think is really important when it comes to running your own business. So go to squarespace.com/LynetteAdkins to get 10% off your first purchase.
So if you want to work for someone, I really, really encourage you to go do it. But I really encourage you as early on as you can to find a company that really aligns with your values, to find a job where you're doing work that you're actually passionate about and excited about. And while that's not always easy, especially again, coming out of college, especially during a pandemic, I encourage you to keep your eyes on what you actually want out of life. And then if you're like me, if you're the kind of person who you don't want to be working for someone for the rest of your life, if you want to be self-employed, then I really encourage you to look for a job right now. Because a lot of us, if we're being real with ourselves, we want to be self-employed, but we cannot do it right in this current moment. And that's totally okay. But when you are working a 9 to 5 in the meantime to pay off your bills or just to get by, I encourage you to look for a job where the inputs are not equal to the outputs. And I actually got this from doing some research, and I found this guy named Naval Rickvant. He says that you should be working a job where the inputs and the outputs are disconnected. And what this really means is you should be looking for a 9 to 5 that requires less hours to reach certain goals, right? So we've all kind of been raised in this belief that in order to work a 9 to 5, you have to work an 8-hour workday, right? But with the pandemic and with a lot of us working from home, a lot of us are realizing that that's not necessarily the case, right? Like, we can work on a project to project basis, we can make our own schedule, we can pace ourselves with our work, and we can still get things done effectively. So I really encourage you, if you you do not want to be working a 9 to 5 for the rest of your life, but you have to work one right now, then I encourage you to look for a 9 to 5 that works on more of a project to project basis instead of a 9 to 5 that's really tracking you by the hour, right? So jobs like these would be like a marketing job or a job where you're doing technology projects. Like maybe you're a coder and you just have to write some kind of code to get a certain kind of project done, right? There's a lot of jobs out there right now that are more project based. But then there's also jobs, right, that are really more focused on how many hours you're putting in, right? So I have a lot of people in my life who work sales jobs, so they have to hit a certain number of calls each day, or some people who work maybe like a customer service job, right? Like you have to call people constantly each day in order to reach a certain quota. Those are jobs that you really, if you can, you really want to avoid so that you can spend more time working on your passion, learning about things. If you want to like go to school and get a certain certificate, you have time to do that, right? You can work on your business, you can work on starting a YouTube channel or whatever it is that you want to do. You have more time to do it. If you're in a job where you're overexerting yourself, where you're spending way too much energy in your job, I encourage you to first be aware of whatever fears, whatever limiting beliefs you have within you that is causing you to feel like you have to overexert yourself at a job. And I encourage you to try your best to not allow your job to take advantage of that fear, right? Because again, we've all grown up in a society where we're gonna have that fear naturally, but I encourage you to be as aware of it as possible so that employers cannot take advantage of and play on that fear by ensuing competition, by getting you to try to over deliver on goals that you really don't need to over deliver on, by getting you to stay late at work. You should never have to do that, right? So I encourage you to create boundaries at your job when it comes to your work schedule, when it comes to how much you're taking on, because it's really gonna help you stay sane at a 9 to 5. But then I also really encourage you to be aware of any kind of company loyalty campaigns that are going on, right? Like if your company is trying to get you to go back into the office, I highly encourage you to stick with a work from home schedule. I encourage you to not spend too much time at work events or trying to get to know the other employees too much, because at the end of the day, again, while it's great to have work relationships, you really want to avoid creating an emotional bond to you and your job, right? So that's tip number 2. And then my third tip, again, is to be aware of what kind of job you're working. And if you can, try to look for a more project-based job so that you can spend more of your time pursuing your passions and learning about whatever it is that you want to be doing full time, right? So hopefully that makes sense. Hopefully that was helpful. I feel like this was a very long and rambly video, but I really hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. I love to learn from you guys. Even when you guys don't agree with me, I really like to read your comments. So yeah, I really hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye.